Yeah, I want to go into troubleshooting the horn on the Suzuki Samurai, and actually this is a very common problem with this vehicle because the horn sits right in the front where, usually they're tucked up inside the fender someplace. This one sits right in the front where all the road weather gets at it. They usually crap out pretty fast. I mean, not that fast, but say a few years. This is the original one, and I haven't used the original one in some years, and I was just used to work when I tested it. And the way to test it is you just run positive one side jumper cables from one side of the battery, positive and negative, and you just got to go positive and negative on here and see if it beeps. Nothing. So I knew this was a bad horn anyway, because that's why I used aftermarket horns. This thing's so anemic, but that's typically usually what's your problem most of the time. Now the other thing to check, now the horn I have on here actually is good, and if we pull off the wires and if we check it, I'll put the ground on. This one's the ground first, and just touch it. Works fine, right? So it's a much louder horn. It's an aftermarket horn. Actually, I got two of them. I think only one of them works though, but that's still fine. Now, say for instance that the horn works, but when you try to blow the horn, it doesn't work at the horn ring. Well, you verified the horn works, but typically on a Samurai, these usually go out because of they are exposed to the weather. A lot of times cars are tucked up under the bumpers. These things just get the blast right from the weather, so that's part of the problem. Now, the way to check this is to take your, this is the white wire here, this white wire is power, the green wire is the ground, okay? And you take your jumper, or basically you can use your hold on a second, I'll turn this camera off a second, hook them up. Okay, so if you look at the gauge, what if I get the light not reflecting on the gauge here, look at the gauge, you can see it's getting full battery voltage. So I got the red hooked up to the white side. It's always hot. It's you typically, the circuit that runs the horn is the same circuit that runs the courtesy lights, like when you open up the door on a car. That's the same fuse. So we have power to the the actual horn itself, and the horn works. So you actually, the way you test it is you put the white wire to the red on the meter, okay, and you ground out the green wire, or you ground out, the other side of the meter to the I'm using the green wire, the other side of the meter to the ground. So that's how you check the voltage. Now, the next step would be to hold down. What's going on is it's not grounding. So in other words, something's going on between the ground side going through the relay, through the steering column, through the horn button. It's not grounding. That's the problem. So basically, you could just verify that by saying putting the ohm meter on the green wire, which is this side. But you pretty much know the deal. It's not working on that side. It's the ground wire is the ground is not working. That's why the horn is not working. So you can verify that though with the ohm meter by actually putting this on the ohms, and if you try to blow the horn, you should have it should show no resistance from the ground. But what's going on, there's no ground. Now typically what happens with this car, and it happened before, was the horn ring gets corroded, and I'll show you what's up on that. And what you really have to do is take off the steering wheel with a steering wheel puller and clean it up, and then use some lubricant on it so it doesn't rust out for a long period of time. But that's typically what happens. But most often, if it's a Samurai, the horn doesn't blow, it's the horn itself. So don't even bother taking apart the steering column. And if you're not sure, you can check the wire. It's very simple. Just, it's always hot. The white one is always hot. The green will show good ground only when the horn is depressed. Okay, so that's the other thing. Typically the relay doesn't break. The relay is actually not in the engine bay. It's tucked up underneath the dash near the I think it's kind of like behind the turn signal under the dash. It's kind of hard to get at, but this car is pretty simple, so that's all you got to do with this thing. So I'll show you how to pull off the steering column. Okay, the steering wheel puller is pulling off the wheel, so basically you tighten this down. You have the two bolts in here, and actually these are the same bolts I used for the Chevy, and these are metric in the Suzuki, and they're SAE in the Chevy. So what I did was use a tap and die set to make these into metric, because I didn't feel like running to the store and getting some bolts. That'll work. So, and I'm just going to show you that you want to, on this, you notice I took the Dremel on the top part. Let's see if I can show this to you. I took the Dremel right here and cut a notch right there. So that's pointing to the upper part of, see the notch? I cut that with a Dremel, so that makes make sure I can put the wheel on the right way. So here the wheel is loose and it'll come off. What may be wrong is this, some corrosion where it's not grounded. Yeah, that appears to be the case. This is all pretty much corroded, and it's copper. So it needs to be cleaned off, emeryed off, and I bet you it'll work after that. So actually if I ground this out, it should beep. So I ran a green ground wire from the battery cable, the negative, and just touch this. Oop. It works. So this just needs to be cleaned off. That's the only thing wrong with it. Very lucky. Now, I've heard that the horn relay is actually difficult to get to. It's, you know, on this one, I'm not quite sure where it is, but it's, on a normal one, it's up behind the dash, behind the dimmer switch, somewhere up in here someplace. And it's pretty well tucked up in place, but this is actually the other spot. I think I had this problem happen before, and just been sitting a while, so we'll clean this off with some emery and this stuff right here, and it should be good as new. And I'll put a little lubricant on there, actually dielectric grease, to keep it from getting all screwed up. Dielectric grease is something good to keep the corrosion away. Yeah, another good idea would be to take out this little clip that's on the horn ring and clean the contacts on it really good, the brass contacts, and especially this thing that runs against the ring on the inside, and clean the inside of that ring too, the one I showed you, but also to clean the inside of it. And to bend this spring out very carefully. You can break it because it's spring steel, but bend it out very carefully, because it probably loses some tension after some years of use. And that should work well. And I'm probably just gonna put WD-40 on this to keep it from corroding, versus the other type of lubricant, which is for dielectric grease. I think WD-40 will probably keep it. It's inside, so you know, it's not going to get dirty, but that should work. Okay, I thoroughly cleaned everything on this. I actually want to pull the wheel off one more time and lubricate all underneath there. So every part of it works good. The torque on this thing is 18 to 28 foot-pounds. That's what the book calls for out of the Haynes manual. That's what I was looked up. And I'm going to put a little Loctite blue on there and torque it down. And you notice the notch on the top, this notch right here, it's pointed to the top there, so I got the wheel on exactly correct. So That's the other thing. So you just got to make sure, now that I Dremel that out, I'll always know which way the wheel comes off and on. But it is important to put some kind of lubricant on there to protect the thing from getting rusted out again. You want to do that, and put a little Loctite on it. I don't think the book calls for it, but I always use Loctite blue on a steering wheel. You don't want to use red, but if you did use red, you're going to have to use some kind of heat to get it off, and I wouldn't do that because of all this plastic. You know, use the blue. Yeah, I don't think I showed how you take this off. Basically, it's got three, I don't know, several, there's three of them actually, three of them. You just pull it straight off. That's how it comes off. There's no bolts or nothing like that. You just pull it straight off, and that's it. So it works. That's it. So all done.